Hi everybody and welcome to SA Rugby magazine. I've got Mark Keohane as always. Mark, always a pleasure to spend a little time chatting to you about some rugger. Let's chat about the Kings. Them not playing. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that they weren't in a bad state. And there was a lot of optimism, euphoria, if you will, about and commitment to having a team based in the Eastern Cape. We need rugby in the Eastern Cape.
Without a doubt, Kev, it's, the vitriol that I've seen already on social media is consistent with 2013 when they played in their debut season. Myself and several of the hybrid team back then got death threats because people thought we were pro the Kings and anti the Lions. And just to contextualize that, the Lions fell out of Super Rugby.
Who's that from? Graham Joffe?
From several people. Okay, yeah. The Lions fell out of Super Rugby because they had won 15% of their games over a decade. The Kings had to be accommodated then. They came in 2013, first team ever, a new team that won on debut. They beat the Western Force 22-10. They went on to draw with the Brumbies overseas. They beat the Rebels overseas and they beat the Highlanders at home. And they really played well. There was just the one blowout game against the Sharks, their last game when they played their second team because they were going to go into a playoff. So it was always very unfair that they would go into a playoff against the Lions because they ended last to see who would then play in Super Rugby the next year. They lost the first playoff game 26-19 in Port Elizabeth and won the second one 23-18 in front of 60,000 people at Ellis Park because no one was charged to come to the game. They wanted to fill up the stadium. They lost 44-42 on balance. And 10 of that Lions team went on to play, basically become the core of the Lions side. They played in three successive finals. And Johan Ackerman back then said the best thing that could have happened to the Lions was that year out of the pressures of Super Rugby to build a team. But in 2013, when Solly was in charge, they'd won the first division. They were competitive in Super Rugby. They'd played against the top South African teams and they were losing 24-12, 2013, 2009.
Where did it go wrong, Mark?
Well, it went wrong through Cheeky, unfortunately. Yeah. It went wrong through the administration when they got rid of Solly. It also went wrong. He was outstanding for that region. He was from that region. Why did they get rid of him? I think it was, again, too many egos in the room. We know Cheeky well enough. It's like there was only one bull in that pen, and it was him. Luke came back, did particularly well in the beginning. I think they got caught up in the whole euphoria of the whole family stuff again. Got injured, didn't play much.
On hindsight, it was probably the worst decision.
Yeah, if he had stayed, and stayed in Bath, he would have ended up playing 500 games for that club, be an icon over there. I think in the context of Eastern Cape and
getting into Super Rugby,
he was the right guy to lead them out. He led them, when he did play, he led them wonderfully in that first year. But the key there from a rugby point of view was when Alan Solomons left. He was outstanding for the region. And then over the years, there was this secondary interest in them. And I go back to 2013 and Regan Hoskins when he was still president. They didn't even attend the opening game at Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium when the Kings played. There was this absolute disconnect between SARu back then and the Kings. When Mark Alexander took over, there was this intent to reinvest, to understand the importance of Eastern Cape Rugby, of the black footprint in Eastern Cape Rugby. And I remember chatting to Wayne Smith and Robbie Deans several years back, and they felt that the Kings had the potential to become the Crusaders of South African rugby because of the geographic location, how small PE was, and that they could really, there was a community bond that could definitely be there. And people also tend to forget, in that 2013 season, they had a home crowd on average of 31,000. And in the history of Super Rugby, only the Stormers with 32 or 33,000 had exceeded that. So
there's real hunger.
There was hunger for rugby there, and there was hunger to watch a team play there. And
why hasn't that translated that into the Pro 14? You still see the empty stadiums. I mean,
because they went from playing in a Super Rugby tournament that they didn't know if they would be in or would be out, to being dumped and being told straight away, you're going into a Pro 14, an extension of Pro 12. They lost 20 players on average every season because they didn't know if they would be in a tournament the next year. So I remember Dion Davids being told, just as he had got that team playing some really good rugger in his second season in Super Rugby as the head coach, was told that they're not going to be playing Super Rugby next year. They don't know where they'll be playing. Every player who could get out went either to other teams in South Africa or went to Europe. And then they were told, you're now playing in Pro 14 against the Munsters of the world, the Leinsters of the world.
There's nothing wrong with those clubs.
No, like the quality of those players, and then they said go pick a club team to play them. You can't have these 20 players, and we also don't know how long you're going to be in Super Rugby, Pro 14-4. So they've really had the short end of the stick when it comes to playing numbers, when it comes to kind of players just feeling they've got a 3-year future there and they can build something.
So in comes this company called the greatest rugby company in the world.
In the whole wide world. That's how they tag themselves. And
always beware of people that
that have to preface a whole wide in terms of the world.
Yeah.
And they've proved to be a disaster. They spoke a big game. Again, I think in it for the wrong reasons. Huge disconnect between Border Bulldogs and the Eastern Province provincial side, and then the Southern Kings. And they've just been tainted with ugliness from the start, a huge racial undertone that people felt it was a black team that was leading, which it never was. And this absolute failure to understand, if you look at the quality of player that's come out of the Eastern Province region, and the most inspirational being our World Cup winning captain of last year, Siya Kolisi. Now, in an ideal world, Siya Kolisi should never have had to leave PE to go to the Western Cape to make it. He should have been playing for the Kings and kind of be that inspiration to any kid.
Well, yeah, I agree, but without the structures of the Western Province, would he have blocked?
No. I completely get it as to why he left.
Yeah.
But where you see where they were in 2013 and what they were building and with the academy side, and everything just seemed to finally be coming together, and there seemed to be good intent from within South African rugby as a custodian, a governing body. Government was talking about a potential investment, just understanding this wasn't about a 25-21 result on a Saturday. This was about acknowledging that rugby has been played within the black community for more than 100 years, as it has been played in the white community here, but that there was recognition of just the absolute raw talent that is in the Eastern Cape. You've got Dale College, you got Selborne, you got Queen's College, you got Grey High, wonderful institutions. Why couldn't those players then go into an academy structure there, and then obviously onto the professional setup, and that Port Elizabeth / the Eastern Cape becomes one of the strong centres of rugby excellence in this country, and speaks to a demographic that has always been marginalised. And that people still seem to fail to see that bigger picture astounds me, especially post 2019, the euphoria around the Springboks winning a fully representative side, one that really spoke to a rainbow nation. And I can understand them not playing in Pro 14 till the end of the year, because of the travel restrictions, but also because of the financial woes that are there. But there really has to be consensus between SA Rugby, between the Kings, between government and business to say, how do we combine all our kind of clever guys and clever women in this country and say this region has to work, and not to the expense of any other region. It just has to work, because South African rugby has to have the Eastern Cape as a strong pillar. It can't just be a secondary thing, an afterthought, or we don't need them anymore. If this vision is till 2030 and beyond, whether you call them the Kings, the Jumbos, or just the Eastern Cape,
well, I think the Clowns would be more.
Yeah, right. There has to be ownership taken of that region, and unfortunately it again sits back with the leadership of South African rugby to say, how do we move forward with this? How do we take charge of a region that we know is going to produce the bulk of our Springboks moving forward?
Yeah, well, there you have it, folks. What a mess. Let's hope let's hope something positive happens there.
Yeah, let's hope that 2021 is also a start for something fresh in the Eastern Cape, and something that's done with intent, it's done with street cred, and done with integrity. And it's like, if we're going to take it seriously, they've got to be committed to a tournament. There's got to be an identity to that region, and you've got to keep the young players there, but you also got to lure some very good players, knowing that they'll be playing there for the next 5 years. It won't be a case of you're in the Southern Hemisphere this year, you're out, now you're in the Northern Hemisphere, or you just don't have a salary.
Yeah, let's get a plan and stick to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Appreciate your comments.
Pleasure.